was paid for by the federal government. They paid for the labor, and the city paid for the material costs. And that's how the city's very first community building was built. It's now known as the Heritage Center. It was constructed in a mere 3 months, but its prominence in the community is everlasting, owed to a very committed group of citizens who are not going to let a few little termites, be the reason that this building was torn down. And now this building upholds a rich, deep history. It really is an important part of our community. During World War II, this building served as the Servicemen Center, and then after the war, this became more of a true community building where both teenagers gathered for dances and adults gathered for gatherings as well. Today, the Heritage Center hosts weddings, fundraisers, birthday parties, community meetings, more. And it also houses, of course, the unique Indian River Citrus Museum, of which we are the only one in this area. And, we do all of this on the most careful of budgets. We have 1.5 administrative positions and a mere 2 half-time facilities people. So we have the privilege of stewarding this building at absolutely no cost to this city, though the city of Vero Beach does continue to own this building. Vero Heritage is the nonprofit that, thanks to all of our volunteer board members, our volunteer committees, we're able to run this place. And tonight is our signature fundraiser. It's a special place. It holds a prominent place in our community's history. It continues to resonate with people. And people can just intuitively feel that this place matters. So it's fitting that we host the Pioneer Dinner here. And pioneers don't set out to be honored, but it is in their willingness to endure hardships in order to explore new places and try new things that our lives have been improved. The early Hamilton-Mathis family certainly did just that. This family developed a strong sense of place, a pride in their community that remains today. Their legacy has been so important to the modern day descendants, and storytelling is an important way to remember the shared history and even express family pride. One of the members of the press just came up to me and she said, "Wow, this family really likes to tell stories." And I said, "Yes, they do. That's definitely a treasure." Thank you all so much for being here this evening to honor the Hamilton-Mathis family, to hear those important stories, and to support the Heritage Center and the nonprofit that runs it, Vero Heritage, Inc. I would like to invite John Hart and Ann Mathis to the microphone. John is going to give us our invocation, and Ann is going to lead us in singing Amazing Grace. I don't know if you want to use this mic or if you need a light, you might want this one. Okay, you can use that one down there.
Okay, everybody, please bow their heads out, pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you tonight, just thanking you for this wonderful event. God, we thank you so much for allowing these families to be so prosperous. God, and for the health that they've given us. God, we also ask you to be with this country. God, be with the leaders of this country. God, maybe we just guide them and give them the directions to put this country back to what it should be, one that worships you, Lord. And God, just bring all our families together. God, we just ask you to bless this food tonight. God, we just ask you to bless the ones that have prepared this food. God, we just ask all these things in Jesus' precious and holy name. Amen.
Amen. And now Ann Mathis is going to lead us in singing Amazing Grace.
No misunderstanding. Billy sing? Not do a solo? So Billy.
You're in trouble now, sir.
The Baptist and Sacred Heart singers don't use microphones. We'll just sing the first verse because everybody knows that. And I'm an alto, so if I get a no, forgive me, I'm sorry. All right.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
And I'm going to allow Billy's table as the first table to go and help themselves because Billy has a big job this evening. And so we need to let his table lead the way over to the buffet. You know, this family actually specifically requested, it was really important to them that we have a meal that reflect the simplicity, the authenticity, and the community mindedness of the early family. And so that's the whole point of this evening's dinner, is to be a real community dinner. So Billy Hart, would your table please lead the way, and then everyone else can just kind of follow in and help yourselves, and thank 14 Bones for being here this evening. We'll check back in with you in about 40 minutes or so. All our financials, you'll be amazed at what we can accomplish with such few people on staff. And the reason we can accomplish so much is because we have a very hands-on, active board. They even do things like paint the trim in this building, so thank you for that, board. So they take an active role in our events as well. Usually a few of them volunteer throughout the year at our events. We have a large board, but tonight I would like to introduce our board president is here, Brian Holmes, over there by the patio. And our board secretary is also here this evening, Joe Shirella. Both of them are here as the bartenders for the evening, and they say the reason that we've been doing so well out there was because of the eye candy that we provided for you. But I would like to thank our other board members. Just because they're not here doesn't mean that they haven't been participating, very active. We meet at least once a month. We have probably more emails than they would like, but I'll say their names and then we can just applaud them as well. Takara Williams, Jessica Hawkins, Christopher Barkis, Kelly Clemenzi, Carol Holmes, Carrie Keene, and Sandra Rennick also serve on Bureau Heritage Board. So let's give them. And of course, we put in all kinds of strange hours, you know, doing weekend things and evening things, and we really have to work well as a team. And so I would like to also introduce my new favorite team member, because we just work together so well, Robin Berry over there as well. Every day she's just like, what can I do for you? I mean, literally every day. So we get so much done. And then finally, of course, this particular event couldn't happen without the committee that really helps to organize the whole event. They are all long-standing supporters of the Heritage Center. They've all served so many roles here, wearing so many different hats here, but for the past several years since I've been here, they have been on the Pioneer Dinner Committee, and I'd like to tell you their names, and if they could please stand up, because most of them are here tonight. Elizabeth Graves Bass. Janie Gould, Judy Roberts, Mary Jane Stewart, and Selena Arden is also on the committee. She's traveling, and because she couldn't be here, she and her husband actually ended up being one of our sponsors for this evening as well. So this is what she did so she could be here. So let's thank her and her husband. Please feel free to keep eating throughout the evening and keep refreshing your beverages as needed. But now I would like to introduce kind of our master of ceremonies for this evening, one of the Pioneer Dinner Committee members and longtime Heritage Center supporter, Janie Gould. Janie.
I did.
Okay. I said, are you ready? She goes, as long as I get to eat the hush puppy, I'll be ready.
Thank you, Heather, and thank all of you for being here tonight for this 20th annual dinner. I would like to recognize some of the officials, all of the officials I know who are here tonight, and Eric Flowers, Major Eric Flowers, of the Indian River County Sheriff's Department was here until just a second ago. He had an invasion of a deep here, so I want to mention his name. Also, Vice Mayor Tony Young, if you stand, please. Village Council Member Laura Moss. And from the Office of Congressman Bill Posey, we have David Jackson. And we want to give special recognition also to our two new supporters of this event tonight, Mr. and Mrs. Ham Arden and Alma Roy. We have, as you know, we have 19 past Pioneer families now. This one is the 20th, and several members of those earlier families are here tonight. So when I call your name, you would stand. The Graves family, Elizabeth Graves Bass. The Helseth family, Patsy Helseth, and Sarah. And more, it looks like there are three more houses. Anyway, the DeRose family, Mike DeRose. The Knight family, Wanda Knight is here tonight. And finally, the Lloyd and Guy family, Alma and Lloyd. I know that at least 3 of these family members have been to, if not all, just about all of the Pioneer dinners. That would be Emily. You've been to all of 20, I bet. I know so. You've been to most, if not all of them, I know. And also, Elizabeth Graves Bass. Probably all of them too. So, anyway, now for tonight's program, and I'm proud to introduce Bill Hart and ask him to step to the podium. He will be talking about the Hamilton-Mathis Families. We're so glad that so many of you are here tonight. Thank you, Bill.
It's so wonderful to have good food and good friends around you. This is a wonderful night. And tonight I would like to thank all the people that have been thanked before, and especially to all of you for coming and sharing this celebration in the honor of our family. Now to the history of our family. This beautiful lady is Lydia Hamilton. She's my grandmother. You can't see it in the picture, but she had long black hair and velvet blue eyes, and she was tall like a willow. Now, she was born in 1888, and she was born in a North Florida city called Edo. When I say Edo to people, they say, "Where's Edo?" And so I say, well, Edo's not really there anymore. All there is 2 signs that say the city limits and a couple of houses. But in reality, it was about 10 miles north of Perry, Florida, and about 5 miles west of Shady Grove, Florida. Now, Edo and Shady Grove had a very special relationship. Many times, people from Shady Grove would say they were from Edo, and people from Edo would say they were from Shady Grove. It was sort of interchangeable. The reason for this was that right in the middle between the 2 towns was a church, a Primitive Baptist church, and almost everyone in those 2 little towns went to that church. It was called the Wildcat Church, and the reason it was called Wildcat Church was because every time they met, it usually ended up with a fight in the parking lot because they didn't agree with what somebody else said. The other reason for Edo and Shady Grove was that it was the home of the local cotton gin. And the cotton gin was where most of the people in that area worked, including the Hamilton brothers. There were 3 family tragedies that happened in the early part of the 1900s that shaped the future of the Hamilton family. The first one was Lydia's mother died in childbirth in 1900. This left Lydia, the oldest child, to be the monarch of the family at the age of 12. So she took charge of the family, the household, and the 6 younger siblings of hers. The second tragedy was the infestation of the Mexican boll weevil in all across the South, which wiped out the entire cotton industry. When it wiped out the cotton industry, it wiped out the cotton gin, and it wiped out all the jobs that were in that particular business. The third tragedy came in 1906 with the yellow fever epidemic that swept through particularly Florida and some of the other southeastern states. Lydia lost a brother, her maternal grandparents, several aunts and uncles, and about 5 cousins. It was said that every household in Florida lost at least 1 person. Now, because of this outbreak of fever and the losing of the jobs, many of the people from Edo and Shady Groves moved out. Some of the families moved to Narrows and down on the east coast of Florida, right on the Indian River. They sent letters back home encouraging people to come to the Narrows because the land was cheap. They could grow 3 crops a year, and there was very little frost that ever had anything to do with the killing of the crops. This is Edward Hamilton, Lydia's father, and my grandfather. Edward had to do something with his family. He wasn't having an income, so he decided that he was going to take the advice of his friends and family that had moved to Narrows, and he decided to move his family down to Narrows. He asked his brother, his older brother, Willie Jass, to join him, so the 2 families gathered their group together, and they moved south. Each family bought 2 covered wagons. One wagon was for personal belongings and provisions for the trip, and the other wagon was for sleeping. The trip from Edo, Florida to Narrows was about 300 miles, maybe a little over. But these 300 miles took them 30 days to travel. It was an arduous trip through breaking axles and everything else that comes along with going along with a covered wagon. John McCullers was one of the people that came to Edo first, and they took in families to Narrows first, and he took in families that came from Edo for the first couple of months so that they could get their bearings and find a place to live and learn the ways of the planting and the agriculture of the area. Community, when they got to Narrows, they found a totally different type of farming. It was community farming. From cradle to rocking chair, everyone worked the fields. They planted the seed and they gathered the harvest. If you could walk, you worked. But it was a good time. This is a picture of the family picking green beans and putting them into crates for shipment. Each family had a stamp which they put onto the crate that told the people that they were selling to where the money would come back to. On the left, you'll see a bean field. This is what Johns Island looked like in 1906. I wonder if the people that live there in those mansions now realize that they're living in the middle of a bean field. Launches were used to transport people up and down the river, particularly in the early days from Narrows to Fort Pierce to do their banking and to do their shopping. But it was the most important thing that it did was it took the bean crates from the field across the river to Quay Dock. This is Quay Dock, where the crated beans were carried and deposited on the dock. They were left there, and someone from the railroad station would come and pick up the bean crates, take it to the depot, and then put it on the station, on the train, to be shipped to Jacksonville and then to the market. This is Quay Depot. Earlier, it had been named Woodley because that was the name of the town, and in 1925, it became Winter Beach Depot. Families survived by planting their own gardens, growing their own livestock, and hunting for wild game. Some of them were fortunate enough to have their own cows and for milk and butter. Ways to preserve food at that time was canning from the garden, smoking, salting, and drying. Staples at this time were such as cornmeal, flour, sugar, salt, and animal feed were purchased in colorful sacks. These sacks were used to make clothing. Nothing was ever wasted. However well designed, they were still flour sacks. Samuel Hamilton, Lydia's uncle, came to the Narrows in 1907. He fell in love with Lydia's best friend, Martha McCullers. They were married, bought a farm on Quaydock Road, and raised a large family of 8 people. This family became a pillar of the Winter Beach Society. This is James Allen Hamilton. He was the youngest brother of the family. He was Edward's youngest brother, but he never got to come to Narrows. His son, James Clemens, or Clem as they call him, he followed his Uncle Samuel, who he called Uncle Sammy, in about 1913. He lived with Uncle Sammy and Aunt Martha and learned to be a successful truck farmer. He met his wife, Pearl Jenkins, while they were working in a bean field. They settled in the area and became parents of 8 children. The Winter Beach Bridge was built in 1925. That's the same year that it became known as Winter Beach, not Quay. The importance of this bridge was that the individual farmer on the barrier island could take their own beans or whatever produce they had, put it in their own truck, drive it across the bridge to the Quay depot, and they didn't have to bother with all of the going across and launches and all that thing. So this was when really truck farming really began. This is the Indian River Primitive Baptist Church. They met once a month for church meetings, but they also, on weekdays, the building was used as a school. It's called Narrows School. Notice that there are no screens in the window. Notice also that everybody has long sleeves, long pants, long skirts. That was to keep away all the biting bugs. The church was also the center of all social events, weddings, funerals, and dinners on the ground. About every 3 or 4 months, the Indian River Primitive Baptist sponsored what they call a singing school. The singing school was where they taught the precepts of reading music and singing music from the hymnal that you have on your table, the Sacred Heart hymnal. And these precepts were very fundamental to the church. There were no instruments in the church, only singing. This particular school is being directed by Felix Popple on the left, by the chalkboard. Trading along the Indian River was made possible by frequent visits of merchant steamers and Seminole Indians of all things. This is my Aunt Susie Mathis Burgess trading with the Seminoles. Mosquito control in the early 1900s was an imperative for people's survival. On the left you see the mosquito netting that every bed had. Now these mosquito nettings were not gone out to Sears and bought. The women wove every one of them by hand. And if you had 12 children, you had to have 12 mosquito nets. So they were pretty busy, I think, more than one way. Palmetto swatches were made of dried palmetto fronds. At each door, there was at least 5 or 6 of them. And as you went out the door, you grabbed the swatch and you started swatting with the mosquitoes and all the way because they gathered a cloud around you. My mother said that when she went into the house, she started about 30 feet away from the door and ran. And so that she could outrun the cloud of mosquitoes behind her, jump into the door. On the inside of the house, many people, if they could afford it, used bee brand insect powder, which they burned in the smudge pots. Now this bee brand powder smelled a lot like the pig. I don't know if you remember the pig that we used to take to the drive-in theater. But anyway, that was what they used inside the house. Now outside the house, they built fires all the way around the house, and then they put wet moss or wet leaves on top of the fire, which created a lot of smoke. And this warded off the mosquitoes and the sandflies. Now, the bad news was that bee brand and the smoke and the fires stunk to high heaven. The good news was that everybody smelled that way. This is Melvin B. Mathis, my grandfather, and he was a Baptist elder, a farmer, and a grove owner in his later years. Now, Melvin was at this time living in Texas in 1906, and his wife was very ill, and she was pretty near death. So her last wish that she wanted to do was to be with her mother, her brother, and her sister, who lived in Narrows, Florida. So Melvin sold his farm, put his wife and his three very young children on a train and moved to Narrows. When they got to Narrows, Susie and Melvin lived with the McCall family. Jane McCall was her sister. After about a month of caring for Susie, the McCall family was exhausted. So Edward Hamilton asked his oldest daughter, Lydia, if she would go and relieve these people for a night so that they could get some rest. Lydia went over and she sang to Susie all night, rubbed her feet with camphorated oil, and in the morning she went home. When she got home, she found out that Susie had died just after she left. Lydia Hamilton and her sister Ollie lived in the house with Martha McCullers, and they became very best of friends. Lydia was 18 years old, and the two other girls were 17. Now, as many young ladies, they were always looking for ways to get in trouble. One Sunday afternoon, the three girls decided that they were going to go to the beach and wade. So they put on their bathing costumes and they ran across the peninsula to the beach, and they were going to wade. Now, these should not be called bathing costumes, they should be called wading costumes, because ladies of that time would never go swimming, because a wet bathing suit clings to your body, and they didn't want that to happen. As soon as they got to the beach, a terrible thunderstorm came up, and it soaked them from head to toe before they could get back home. They ran as fast as they could, and they ran up on the porch where there's bathing costumes sticking to their body and their hair stringing down. And to their horror, it was filled with young men talking on the porch. They screamed and ran into the house horrified. One of the men on the porch was Melvin Mathis. And 3 months later, he and Lydia were married. Later in life, I was not even a thought yet, but when I talked to Granddad, he said, you know, Lydia was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. The wedding night was spent in a tent. Now, Melvin had bought 10 acres of land that is now just north of the Johns Island Country Club, the 10 acres that he farmed. On the wedding night, they went into this leaky old tent, and naturally, there was a rainstorm. It soaked them from the top to the bottom, and they had to escape out of the tent into a chickie that Melvin had constructed for cooking, and they spent the rest of the night in that chickie. The next morning, Melvin didn't say a word. He just got up, got in the boat, went to the store and bought a gallon of paint and came and slathered the tent about 2 inches thick of paint. I guess this is a good time to talk about marriage in the early times. When you have a small community with many large families, it's inevitable that you're going to have brothers and sisters of one family marry brothers and sisters of another family. This chart will show you the four of the families. The top one is the Blanton family. The one bottom left is the Hamilton family. The middle one is the Mathis family. And the far right is the McCullers family. If you go back to the Hamilton family, you'll see that the two older brothers, Willie Jass and Edward, married the two sisters of the Blanton family, Lucretia Creasy and Martha Jane. If you look down further in the Hamilton, you'll see that Edward's two daughters, Lydia and Ollie, married the two Mathis brothers. And if you look back down in this Hamilton again, you'll see that Samuel Hamilton married Lydia's best friend, Martha McCullers. Now, Martha McCullers' aunt was Susie McCullers, who was Melvin's first wife. This was a total nightmare for anybody that researches this. All of a sudden, you have people that are double cousins, double aunts, double uncles, and for the most part, most of us that are in this type of family thing, we just forget it and say we're kin to everybody. This is my mother, Hamilton-Mathis Clark, and my aunt Sue Mathis Burgess in their various Sunday finals. They were going to church at this point. These are the same two ladies. Notice the long sleeves, the shoes, and collars very high. These were working in the field duds. They had to do this because of the terrible mosquitoes, sandflies, and the Florida sun. This beautiful ensemble was topped off by a huge straw hat. My mother, until her dying day, would not go outside without long sleeve shirts or this sombrero-like straw hat. In her defense, the Mathises are very fair-skinned and they burn very easily. By 1932, many of the families had moved off of the island and to the mainland. The reason for this was that the truck farmers simply could not compete with the corporate farming that was coming into the area. The other reason, poor farming practices depleted the soil, and they tried to compensate by fertilizer to compensate for their poor soil. But the cost of the fertilizer was too much, and they could not make a profit. The other reason was the expanding citrus industry. This is the last family reunion of the Mathis family in 1932 on Johns Island. Between 1932 and the 1960s, Johns Island reverted back to thick jungle, and people just sort of forgot about the area. There was always the back burner of some people to turn this into a golf course of some kind or to a school, but it didn't occur until the late 50s, early 60s. The Hamilton family and the Mathis family moved to the mainland. This is the house that Edward Hamilton bought in 1907. 15 years later, he sold it to his son, J.J.P. Hamilton. This was Lydia's brother. JP was named Jesse James Purell Hamilton. Now, he was not only a businessman in the store, but he was also a politician. He served as the Indian River County Commissioner for 22 years, and at one point was chairman of the board. He was also a family man. Uncle Jesse and his large family have made many contributions to the welfare and development of Winter Beach and Indian River County. This is Paul Mathis, Lydia's oldest son. Paul was a welder and a founder of a business, Hamilton-Mathis, that invented, improved, repaired, and installed equipment for the citrus industry for more than 50 years. He was joined by his son, Claude. This is William E. Eddie Hamilton. His father was Willie Jass, the oldest son of the Hamiltons. Although Willie Jass, his wife Creasy, and his first son James came to a very untimely and tragic death, the remaining six siblings became hardworking, productive members of the Winter Beach community. In 1982, my sister Melba and I went out to visit Lydia, and we talked to her for about 2 hours, and we have a tape of that conversation. When we got finished talking to her, I said, Grandmother, you really lived through some very hard times, didn't you? And she looked at me with that blank stare that she always gave to people that she couldn't quite believe that they were saying what they were saying. And she said, well, Billy, at the time, we didn't know there were hard times. We just did the best with what we had to do. So I think that's the way most pioneer families live. The Hamilton-Mathis family has served Indian River County for more than 113 years. We're now on the 8th generation of Floridians. The most important legacy has been their values, love of family, and love of country. Thank you very much.
And now, after what an amazing photo montage put together in that presentation, a nice bit of history, we're going to do something different that we've never tried before. One of our Pioneer Dinner Committee members happens to be a journalist and former radio personality. So we thought we would put her to the test, and we're going to do a quick fireside chat with 3 of the folks who are here this evening. So Peggy, Faye, and Billy, would you please join Janie Gould at the fireplace?
The first question is for Bill. And first of all, thank you so much for that presentation. That was really, really good. I was waiting to hear the story you told me one time for radio about the time your grandfather had a load of guavas on a truck.
Yes.
And was trying to cross, this isn't on the script, but he was trying to cross the bridge, the old bridge here in Bureau, to take the truck, to take the guavas to market. And why don't you just tell everybody what happened? Just briefly. Briefly.
If any of you remember the old bridge, there was a hump in the bridge where the boats could go under. When he got to this hump, he had a truckload of guavas. I mean, he had overloaded the truck. And he took a flying leap and started and got halfway up and stalled and rolled back. So he got back a little further, got faster. He rolled the Model T faster, and got right up to the top, it stalled, and he rolled back. And the third time, he got even further back and tried to get up even more steep. But he still got halfway up and rolled back. Now, you got to remember, Melvin was a Primitive Baptist elder. And on the third time, he jumped out of the truck, kicked the tires, and swore everything he could think of. And not to his dismay, there was a crowd on the bridge. And also his two sons, which even embarrassed him more.
Good story. Now, back to my script. You mentioned the Indian River Primitive Baptist Singing School, and I see that each table this evening has a Sacred Heart hymnal. I was thumbing through it a little while ago while listening to your presentation, of course. Anyway, what role did that music play in the family history? And what is the significance of those hymnals? Are they still used, by the way?
My grandmother's favorite song was Amazing Grace, which we sung tonight. During her life, and Mathis is right here, Ann still goes to singing schools all across the state. And every Primitive Baptist church has these hymnals in them. In fact, I think these come from the Primitive Baptist church here.
No, actually, they're just mine.
Oh, they're yours.
They're mine.
Okay.
We use conventional do re mi in the church service, but the fa sol la, the four shape note, is
Yeah.
especially singing.
Will you say that again, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll learn one day to keep my mouth shut. Don't. We actually use do re mi, the eight shape note hymnals in our church service. The four shapes for the Sacred Harp singing we use for just singing days. But it was the easier thing to learn to read and without having a piano.
It's amazing that these congregations, you can put a piece of music that they've never heard or never seen, and they sing it right off using those shape notes.
Well, that's interesting, and coming from you, you're a musician by profession, a retired music educator, and you also are a musician and singer. Now, that we were talking at the dinner table a while ago, the Primitive Baptist Church was moved from Johns Island,
Yes.
isn't that right?
Yes.
And to 12th and Old Dixie?
No.
No,
It wasn't that way?
No. The Indian River Primitive Baptist Church was originally on Johns Island. It moved from there in the 20s to Quadock Road, about halfway between Indian River and Old Dixie. Then it moved, I think it might have been in the 60s, to the little church just north of Winter Beach Cemetery, and that's where it is now. The Antioch Baptist Church was a spin-off from Indian River.
Okay, a question for Peggy. Lydia had several siblings. Pardon?
Did you say for Peggy?
Yes. Your grandfather, J.J.P. Hamilton, was Lydia Hamilton-Mathis's brother. He owned the Hamilton Grocery and Service Station and became involved in local development and politics. Tell us a little bit more about him. Would you please, Peggy?
Well, the first thing I want to do is say thank you to everyone. Can I do that first? Okay, I'll do that second. Did you get that question too? A thank you to this. Let me change my order. Hi, I'm Peggy Hamilton. JJP's my grandfather, Edward, or we recently found out his name may have been Edwin. On 5 different population censuses, Edward's name is Edwin. Thank you, Brenda. She's our historical person. And the whole time we've been writing Edward on all of our records. My grandfather was a key figure in the development of Winter Beach and Indian River County. The renaming of Quay to Winter Beach happened because of the 8,000 lot development J.J.P. Hamilton, Mr. Braswell, and several other men were planning. One of them was Waldo Sexton, He was the realtor for the beach side. The pictures of that are on the display right there. This was, the other one was Donald Forbes. So they had this idea for their 8,000 lot development to rename Quay. So they did. They put an ad in the paper. A lady in Fort Pierce won the contest. She won 2 lots. And that's where they came up with the logo where sunshine spins the winter beach. Yeah. So, as you all know, there was a crash, there was a depression, there was an embargo on a lot of wood that was being shipped down, 2 hurricanes, and the development never happened. Great plans, even a golf course was planned. The whole Winter Beach development, that's over there. So I'm very proud of my grandfather for what he attempted to do, along with some other men. And I just found out recently that Waldo Sexton was one of the realtors. That's pretty interesting, isn't it? I think so. He was, this is what I wrote, because we have the Winter Beach Historical Society, and in these meetings, one of the ladies spoke up, and she actually was teary-eyed, talking about how my grandfather was a hero in Winter Beach and saved a lot of people during the Depression. He had a grocery store, and he fed people on credit when they couldn't afford it. He helped them with their tax deeds when they were going to lose their homes. A lot of people considered Granddaddy to be quite a hero. He helped build the first courthouse in River County. His picture is still right across the street in the old courthouse with the other Board of County Commissioners. Let's see, what else do I want to say about Granddaddy? He picked me up for church. My father built a little house that's still in Winter Beach, near the store, near the big house, Granddaddy's house. And he would pick me up with my sister Linda to drive to the church, which was about a block away, but I think he wanted to show off his car or something. And my mother I was very forgetful, so my mother would tie a little handkerchief and put a dime in there for collection. My grandfather contributed a lot to the churches. It's called ARC, we can't say that today, it's not politically correct, Association of Retarded Citizens, it used to be called. He contributed for that. There's a picture back there, he's giving a $700 check. It's on the bulletin board of the display that I did back here. What else? Granddaddy. He was chairman of the board, you said that. And he was on the list of trusted realtors. There was a list of trusted realtors. He was that. He helped build roads and bridges. And I think those are the main things about Granddaddy that I'd like to mention.
Thank you, Peggy. Maybe one of you would know this. Wasn't there an arch over, is there a picture of that? I've never.
I have a picture, I'll tell you.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you about the arch.
Okay, this is the arch that was over US 1, I guess, in Winter Beach.
No.
Not Winter Beach, in Quay.
Okay. I have a picture of it, a little tiny picture, with me standing in my front yard, and the arch was they were supposed to get off the train. There were 5 limousines. One article said 7 that Mr. Braswell had. They were supposed to get off of those, travel across the Winter Beach Bridge, which existed then, and to show all the properties for the 8,000 lots. So they built the archway for the city, the estates that never happened. I grew up in Winter Beach until I was 4, and I remember that arch. It was kind of spooky. And there was a hotel there too, right there on the corner by Granddaddy's store. And we can't figure out all that, can we? The hotel, we can't figure out what happened to it. There was a hotel. But that archway is no longer there. It's in the background of one of the pictures of Linda and I standing in our yard. A little, you can barely see it. That's your answer to the arch.
Good, I wondered about that. Never seen a picture of it.
I'll show you later.
Okay. All right, now, Faye, you haven't said much. What time for you to?
I got 6 people. That's all I wanted. That was the main thing I wanted to do.
What do you want to do?
To say thank you to some of the people that didn't get thanked. The Winter Beach Historical Society.
Sure, we'll do that in just a second. Okay, before we end this. Faye, now, your family is blood relatives of the Hamilton-Mathis clan, correct?
Through the McCullers, we are related through the McCullers.
So there are a lot of you, right? How many, anybody do a census, a family census? Do you have any idea how many McCullers, Hamiltons, and Mathis Parks there might be in the area? Anybody know?
Who
knows?
Now, Billy was talking about the strong sense of community in the early through the mid 1900s, when everyone in the Narrows had deep, meaningful connections, other than the post office, and I think there was also a library there, right? It was the first library in what's now in Ingham County. Anyway, other than that, what were other ways that the Woods family, your family, connected with the Hamilton and Mathis families and the community? Faye, you want to comment on that?
I'm not very good at off the cuff, so I'm going to read my answer. After my family moved from Narrows, what was known as Quay, my great-grandfather, Carrie Fletcher, served as postmaster for many years. Then my grandmother became interested after graduating from high school and getting married. And as she once quoted in an article featuring her years in the Postal Service, as a small child, Mrs. Wood said, mail held a tremendous fascination for me. So around 1912, her aunt was postmistress of Narrows, and she recalls many happy hours spent there. Then after her family moved to Quay, you could always find her perched on the doorstep of the post office, watching the mail being loaded on a mule's back for delivering to Fort Drum. After she passed the civil service test exam, beating my grandfather by just a few points, she started working at the Winter Beach Post Office. Bertha May, as everyone knew her, petitioned her postal box customers to help her become the second female postmaster in the state of Florida. It was that list of friends and relatives of the Winter Beach Post Office to include most of the Hamiltons, Mathis, Harp, McCullers, Fletchers, Sheffields, Woods, and Walkers, and many more pioneers of that time that helped my grandmother become postmaster. Bertha May Woods became postmaster. Bertha May went on to serve as postmaster for a collective 50 years, when retiring and passing the baton to her daughter, my mother, Betty Jane Dukes. There were a total of 4 generations that worked for the Postal Service from Narrows, Quay, and Winter Beach, and that's including myself, and I served as a clerk for a few years before getting married. Other than the post office,
That's our next question.
Oh, okay. Got to stick to the script here, sort of. Oh, okay, okay. All right, Peggy, you have some thank yous you'd like to.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you for letting me thank you. I appreciate that.
The Winter Beach Historical Society, we worked towards this event for about 9 months, and I'd like to thank Brenda Coram. Raise your hand, Brenda. Because she did so much historical work. She's amazing. Buddy Walker, my cousin, he's not here tonight. Faye Estes, Janet Anderson, over there. And Harry Hurst is not here. I don't know if some of you know Harry Hurst. He's not here tonight. I want to thank him. For the display boards, Dee Dee, raise your hand. Dee Dee Hamilton, up high. And she did those with Leah and Shannon Skinner. That's Drew Hamilton's daughters. So, and Brenda Coram did the Samuel Hamilton and Eunice Hamilton Walker displays over here. And Ruth Ann, my sister Ruth Ann, raise your hand. There's a fabulous book over there. She did our ancestral way back to the 1500s. And it's over there too. Took a lot of time. It's an amazing book. Sponsors, Amelie Loy, thank you very, very much. She bought some of the dinner tickets for some of our family members. And Colleen Liebert, thank you. Yes, my friend Colleen, she's over there in the corner by my nephew Oliver. His daddy, my brother, couldn't be here tonight. Bill Clemens, he's a friend of mine, he also contributed tickets. And Good Life Fitness, I own a fitness studio, and some of my members came tonight to support us. So thank you too. And two more things, and I know y'all are probably getting bored by now, but the Pioneer Family photo shoot, Paul Hamilton had 14 family members here for that. You saw the newspaper articles, so give it a big Kathy and Paul. 14, and I told them 2 days ahead of time. I said, would y'all like to do a photo shoot? And I couldn't believe that they all showed up. Thank you. And I want to thank the Heritage Center. Thank you, Janie. And that's it. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank you, Peggy. Now I'd like to ask David Jackson, who is representing Congressman Bill Posey, to come up. He has a letter to present about the family.
Good evening, everyone. I have a letter here from Congressman Posey, who unfortunately couldn't make it this evening, but I'll have to read to you all tonight. Dear Hamilton-Mathis family, I would like to use the occasion of this evening's Pioneer Family Recognition Dinner to congratulate the Hamilton-Mathis family for being this year's honoree. Considering both families are descendants of early settler Edward Walter Hamilton, this makes them true pioneers. Long before an oceanfront golf community occupied a peninsula of Vero Beach's Barrow Island, early settlers grew green beans, tomatoes, and guavas in what is now called Johns Island. Both families each homesteaded land on Johns Island and grew vegetables there early in the 20th century. They were drawn by communal living, temperate climate, and the ease of shipping produce on the Indian River Lagoon. This area represented some of the best agricultural land around, and the peninsula's proximity to the Gulf Stream and the Indian River Lagoon gave farmers the ability to move produce by water and rail. Though neither is in existence today, both Quay Dock and Quay Depot were indispensable points of departure connecting people and crops to the mainland. It was on this land that Lydia Hamilton and Melvin Mathis met and eventually married, uniting two families of pioneers and starting a new family of their own. Through boll weevil infestations, sickness, and death, Edward Hamilton's daughter, Lydia Hamilton Mathis, was the rock that supported the family then and continues to inspire storytelling today. The Hamilton-Mathis family were among the first to settle this region, thus opening it for occupation and development by others. This family developed a strong sense of place, a pride and community that remains today. The Hamilton-Mathis family has been an asset not only to Indian River County, but to the 8th Congressional District of Florida. Again, congratulations and best wishes for the future. Sincerely, Bill Posey, Member of Congress.
Thank you so much. Now we have just a couple more items of business here or up there.
There's my
Here,
free
okay. We have a plaque for the family, and I'll present it to, I guess, the three of you.
I think it should go to the Winter Beach
To who?
side. The Winter Beach
It's
side.
gonna go up here, it's actually gonna live in the Heritage
yeah.
Center.
Oh, okay.
With all of the Pioneer families.
Okay, all right.
So you all get it, but you can't take it with you.
Oh,
And now, it's time, I think, to announce, right?
Oh, yeah, exciting, I'm sorry. I was moving that out of the way so you could see all the other families.
Yeah, let's go right up there.
Yes, you made your announcement, Janie.
Okay, now the announcement of next year's family. This will be the 21st family, Pioneer family, and we think it's really appropriate. It's the family of A.W. Young, the father of Vero Beach. He was the first mayor, and this is a centennial year and a half, a centennial 2 years, but for next year, it's going to be the Young family. Tony Young.
Tony and Sharon, please stand up.
So we're looking forward to another great Pioneer Dinner next year. Back to you.
Everyone, thank you so much for helping make this dinner happen. I know it was a lot of historical digging. I know they worked so hard finding all of these treasured photos and just cultivating all these stories that we'd love to hear this evening. So thank you so much to the Hamilton-Mathis family, and thank all of you for coming and supporting that family and supporting the Heritage Center. And we hope to see you again this time next. Oh no, wait, I forgot. Next year we're going to change the date because we're all year-round residents anyway, so we don't need to do stuff in season. We can do it whenever we want. But we'll look forward to seeing all of you again next year at the annual Pioneer Dinner. And we hope you had a lovely evening. Thank you so much for joining us.